I found the email at 5:17 on a Tuesday morning, while the city outside our kitchen window was still dark. I was not snooping. I was not suspicious. I was just a tired woman with flour under my nails, a hotel contract due before sunrise, and a printer that refused to connect to my own computer. Ethan's laptop was open beside his coffee mug. I clicked the mail icon because the print window had frozen. That was the moment my marriage stopped being a marriage and became evidence. The subject line said, "Preliminary valuation for Sweet Laurel Bakery." Sweet Laurel was not just a business. It was the last living thing my mother had touched before cancer took her voice and then her hands. She had kneaded dough there when chemo made her shake. She had written recipes in blue ink. She had handed me the keys 2 weeks before she died. At first, I told myself there had to be an explanation. That is what betrayed women do before they become dangerous. We build excuses faster than liars build stories. Maybe Ethan was helping me research expansion. Maybe he wanted to surprise me. Maybe the broker had misunderstood. But the email chain was long, too long. It mentioned minority partner consent, spousal pressure points, and liquidation before creditor action. Then I saw Ryan's name, Ethan's younger brother, beside a number I could barely process, $280,000. Ryan had always been the family disaster dressed as a misunderstood dreamer. Failed gym, failed crypto group, failed food truck, failed everything except making other people feel guilty for not rescuing him. The broker wrote that selling Sweet Laurel quickly could clear Ryan's private debts and provide seed capital for Larkstone Media. I had never heard of Larkstone Media. My bakery had become the rope thrown to drowning men who had drilled holes in their own boat. I opened another attachment. It was a draft agreement giving Ethan 50% of Sweet Laurel. The reason listed was business expansion, loan access, and marital partnership. The lies were polished so nicely, they almost looked respectable. I read those words 3 times, hoping they would change. They did not. A sentence can sit quietly on a screen and still slap the breath out of your lungs. Trust was not what Ethan wanted from me. Access was. Then I saw the line that turned shock into something harder. It was from Ethan to Linda, sent at 11:42 the night before, while I had been sleeping beside him. She has nobody left but me. If I threaten to walk away, she'll sign. I remember staring at those words until they stopped looking like language and started looking like a confession. My mother was dead. My father had been gone since I was 12. Ethan knew my loneliness like a map, and he had planned to use it as a weapon. Betrayal does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it kisses your forehead while calculating how much your grief is worth. I wanted to cry, but something inside me refused. Tears are too expensive to waste on thieves. I copied everything. Emails, attachments, timestamps, messages between Ethan, Linda, and the broker. I forwarded the files to a private account, then to a new one I created. I photographed the screen. At 6:10, Ethan walked into the kitchen wearing gray sweatpants and the soft smile that used to make me forgive him. He kissed my cheek. "Big day?" he asked. "Huge," I said. My voice did not break. That surprised me. He poured coffee, complained about a client, and asked whether I had thought more about opening a second location. There it was. The first hook in the water. "Maybe," I said. Predators hate patience because it makes them visible. I drove to Sweet Laurel, while sunrise made the windows shine like honey. The sign above the door had my mother's handwriting carved into wood. Sweet Laurel, since 1989. To them, Sweet Laurel was a balance sheet. To me, it was proof that my mother had existed, loved fiercely, and left me more than grief. You cannot liquidate a soul and call it strategy. At 10:30, when the rush slowed, I locked myself in the office and checked the security camera system. The office camera faced the filing cabinet. 2 nights earlier, at 8:18 p.m., Linda had entered with her spare key. I watched her on the screen, elegant in her cream coat, looking around like a woman entering a room she believed should belong to her. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out folders labeled insurance, tax returns, vendor contracts, and trust documents. She photographed pages with her phone, then took 3 envelopes and slid them into her purse. The same woman who told me family meant sharing had been stealing documents in the dark. I downloaded the footage and saved it twice. Then I called Rebecca Shaw, a trust and estate attorney who ordered lemon tarts every Friday. I told her I needed legal advice but could not explain over the phone. She heard enough to say, "Come at noon," Bring everything. Do not confront anyone. A good lawyer does not calm you down. She sharpens you. She read the email chain without interrupting. Her expression changed only when she saw Ethan's sentence about threatening to leave because I had nobody else. Maya, she said, your mother placed the bakery into an irrevocable trust 6 months before she died. Ethan cannot own it unless the trust allows it, and it does not. My mother, dying and smarter than all of us, had made Sweet Laurel untouchable. I was the beneficiary and operating manager. The bakery could not be sold, transferred, pledged, or used as collateral without approval from an independent trustee and a written determination that the action benefited me. Not my spouse, not his family, not his brother, and certainly not a fake company tied to another woman. I asked about Larkstone Media. Rebecca's assistant ran a corporate search. Larkstone was registered to Celia Hart. The name meant nothing until Rebecca found photos of Ethan and Celia at a Phoenix conference 6 months earlier. In one photo, his hand rested at the small of her back. The caption read, "Building something powerful with the best partner." I had thought the affair would be the knife. It was only the handle. Ethan wanted my bakery to pay Ryan's debts and rescue a company owned by his lover. Linda knew enough to steal documents. Ryan knew enough to stay invisible. They had made a family project out of stripping me down to loneliness and signatures. Rebecca closed the laptop gently. Now we build the record, she said. In that room, I stopped being a wounded wife. I became a witness. The plan was simple. I would not reveal what I knew. I would ask Ethan to explain his expansion idea in writing. I would sign nothing. Rebecca would notify the trustee quietly, preserve the camera footage, and secure the original trust documents. Do not match their chaos, she said. Let them perform. People planning fraud almost always talk too much when they think they are winning. That evening, Ethan came home with yellow roses, my favorite when he remembered me, his favorite weapon when he needed something. He set them on the counter and said, "I've been thinking about us." I almost laughed. Us had become a password for him to enter my inheritance. He talked about growth, family, legacy, and how banks respected 2 names more than one. He said it was time I stopped carrying everything alone. I asked him to email me the proposal so I could read it carefully. His smile flickered. Linda arrived 10 minutes later without calling. She kissed Ethan, touched the roses, and said, "Good. You two are talking like adults." Then she turned to me. "Your mother would have wanted you to build something bigger with your husband." My mother's name in her mouth felt like mud on clean linen. I folded a dish towel and said, "My mother wanted me safe." Linda's eyes hardened, but her voice stayed sweet. Ethan Sahil. "Maya, don't make this emotional. That line should be printed on every red flag ever ignored by a woman. Men benefit from your emotions until your emotions identify their theft. Then suddenly, you are dramatic." Linda said Ryan was in trouble, families help each other, and money was just money. I asked how Ryan's debt connected to Sweet Laurel. The room went quiet. Ethan stared at his mother. Linda stared at her purse. I had not accused them. I had simply touched the locked door and listened to the rats scatter behind it. Ethan recovered first. Nobody said anything about Ryan. His voice was too quick. "I'm talking about our future." I nodded. "Then send me the future in writing." He laughed, but it did not reach his eyes. "You sound like a lawyer." I held his gaze and said, "Maybe I finally started listening to one." That was the first time fear crossed his face. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. Remember this. People who love you fear losing you. People who use you fear losing access. Ethan called in less than 4 minutes. I let it go to voicemail. His message was calm at first, then tight. "Maya, don't embarrass me. We need to be united." For 3 days, the pressure increased. Ethan became tender, then wounded, then cold. Linda texted Bible verses about wives and loyalty, bold for a woman caught on camera stealing tax files. Ryan messaged that he loved me like a sister and hoped I would not let pride destroy the family. Pride. That was what they called my refusal to be robbed. I saved every text and answered almost nothing. Silence made them frantic. Weak people think silence is surrender because they have never seen discipline up close. If you can't trust me enough to make me a real partner, maybe we need to talk about whether this marriage works. I sat on the couch, my phone recording beneath a blanket. "Are you threatening divorce if I don't give you half the bakery?" I asked. I'm saying I can't stay married to someone who treats me like a stranger. A stranger. Strangers had not plotted against me with their mothers. Strangers had not used my dead parents as leverage. Strangers had not tried to feed my inheritance to a lover's company. I asked, "And if I sign?" Ethan stepped closer. "Then we move forward. I forgive the hesitation. We expand. We help Ryan. We all win." There it was, clean and recorded. We help Ryan. The mask had slipped because greed gets tired of wearing makeup. I stood and said, "I need time." He thought time meant I was breaking. It meant the trap had closed. Linda opened the cabinet again, not knowing Rebecca had replaced the real trust folder with harmless copies. She cursed when she could not find what she wanted. Then she called Ethan. The camera caught her saying, "The trust papers are gone. Did she move them?" Ethan's voice came through on speaker. "Then push harder. She'll crack." I saved that too. I walked into the bakery 2 minutes later. Linda froze with a folder in her hand. "Maya," she said, "I was just organizing." I looked at the camera in the corner. Her eyes followed mine. The color drained from her face. I said nothing. Silence is not empty when the other person knows what it contains. By noon, Rebecca had the footage. That afternoon, Rebecca sent formal letters to Ethan, Linda, Ryan, the broker, and Celia Hart, preservation of evidence, notice of trust restrictions, and demand to cease any attempt to transfer, pledge, sell, or encumber Sweet Laurel. The trustee froze all pending inquiries. The broker withdrew within an hour, claiming he had been misled. Cowards discover ethics when subpoenas appear. Ethan came home furious. "You went behind my back?" he shouted. I looked at him and said, "No, Ethan. I went behind the knife you were holding." Each lie arrived dressed as an emergency. That is how manipulators work. They set the fire, then accuse you of being cruel for refusing to burn with them. I listened until he ran out of breath. Then I placed a small suitcase by the door. "You need to leave tonight," I said. "This is my home too." I nodded. "The lease is in both names. The marriage is real. The bakery is not yours." I realized I was no longer afraid of being abandoned by someone who had already left emotionally, morally, and legally. There is freedom in seeing the monster clearly. Ethan grabbed his keys and said, "You will regret this." I answered, "I regret trusting you. Do not confuse that with missing you." The separation happened fast because Rebecca moved faster. Temporary orders, financial disclosures, a forensic accountant, and a protective order involving business records. Ethan hired a loud attorney who claimed marriage was partnership. I benefited from Ethan's support. The bakery grew during the marriage, and fairness required compensation. Rebecca let him talk. Then she produced the trust. She produced bank records showing I paid the bakery's loans, rent, vendors, taxes, and payroll from business income and premarital accounts. At mediation, Ethan wore the blue suit I bought him for our anniversary. Linda sat behind him with a tissue. Ryan did not come. Celia's company records did. Larkstone Media had received transfers from Ethan, totaling $46,000 over 8 months. When the mediator asked about the payments, Ethan said they were investments. Rebecca slid across photos of Ethan and Celia in Phoenix, San Diego, and Miami. Investments, apparently, sometimes wear red dresses and kiss married men beside hotel pools. Linda followed him into the hallway, whispering loudly enough for our side to hear. She was supposed to sign before this got complicated. Liars think the performance ends when they leave the room. It never does. Hallways, receipts, habits, arrogance, they all testify eventually. When we reconvened, Ethan's offer changed. Greed had become negotiation. I refused. Clean does not mean polite. Clean means the poison is labeled, removed, and never stored in your kitchen again. We settled the divorce with Ethan taking his personal property, his car, his debts, and a repayment obligation for unauthorized marital charges. Linda signed a statement admitting she entered the bakery office without permission and removed documents. Ryan was mentioned only as a debt source. I kept Sweet Laurel. More importantly, Sweet Laurel kept me. The day the divorce became final, I did not throw a party. I mixed dough, glazed lemon loaves, burned 1 tray of almond croissants because Nina made me laugh, and served coffee to a retired teacher who said my mother would be proud of me. Freedom smells a lot like fresh bread. 6 months later, the hotel contract became 3 hotels. A food writer came in for a tart and wrote an article titled, the bakery that refused to disappear. Orders doubled. The trust allowed expansion if it benefited me and preserved my mother's legacy. So we opened a second location on Laurel Street, which felt like a wink from the universe. On opening day, I brought the old wooden sign from storage. Sweet Laurel. Since 1989, we hung it above the new counter while customers lined up outside, and I cried in front of everyone. For the first time in years, I did not feel like a woman with nobody left. I felt surrounded. Ethan sent one email that morning. No subject, just 2 sentences. I heard about the second location. I guess you got what you wanted. I read it twice, then deleted it. People ask how I did not see it sooner. I understand the question, but I hate it. It puts the flashlight on the victim instead of the thief. When you have lost too much, you start protecting the people who remain, even from your own instincts. That is not stupidity. That is grief wearing hope's clothes. Paperwork is not romance, but it protects what romance can destroy. Family is not the loudest person saying the word. A threat to leave is sometimes a gift wrapped in cruelty. Let them leave. Let the door close. Let the silence show you what their presence was costing. If someone demands ownership as proof of trust, they are not asking for trust. They are asking for keys. My mother's final act of love was not the bakery itself. It was the boundary around it. She knew I was generous. She knew I might confuse loyalty with sacrifice if someone cried hard enough, so she built a fence I could not tear down in a weak moment. Hearts are powerful, but they are terrible security systems. Sometimes I stand alone in the second location after closing, when the ovens are cooling and the streetlights reflect on the glass. I run my hand over the old sign and think about the sentence Ethan wrote, "She has nobody left but me." He was wrong. I had my mother's planning. I had my own spine. I had truth. And when truth finally stood up, nobody in that family was tall enough to block it. So if you are listening to this while sitting beside someone who makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, hear me clearly. Love does not require you to hand over your inheritance. Marriage does not require you to ignore your instincts. Family does not mean funding someone else's failures while they call your caution selfish. Keep copies. Read documents. Ask questions. Call lawyers before you call relatives who benefit from your silence. And when someone says, "If you loved me, you would sign," remember what I learned the hard way. The right person will protect your name, not pressure you to erase it.